And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster.
A very big welcome, super coaches, to the NFL SuperCoach Halfa. I'm Matty C, and I've got to apologise straight out of the gate. It's an emergency pod. So here I am in the smallest room. It sounds like a jail cell, and I really apologise for the quality of the sound and do what I can to try and make it scrub up all right. Can't do much about the face, I'm afraid. But with me today to talk about the most exciting development in NFL fantasy in the country today is only Australia's best analyst, Talor Goodall. And mate, how are you containing your excitement?
See, as a male, it's important to keep your crack and sack clean. But Matty C, we are so back. Let's go.
The correct answer to this is you are not containing your excitement at all. And I love it. Mwah. That was
And
Chef's kiss, Jake.
honestly, for anything authentic, I completely fucked that rhyme up, and I was meant to end with sack or crack and then obviously lead in. But look, it's episode 1, mate. I think we're allowed to make some mistakes.
This not writing it down thing is really working for you, by the way.
I basically hit like a 40% rate at it, whether they even rhyme or work at the moment when I don't write them down. But I actually feel like the listeners will be with me where it actually probably is better being a bit more off the cuff.
I love it, mate. I love it. At the moment, you're at about the same rate that I've got for like successful free throws. It's not very good, but it only makes it a mystery. Will he get it in? Will he not? I think it adds to the allure of that part of the show.
Mate, let's not get into my NBL record for free throws. Well, we've got plenty of time for that.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And I feel like that always needs to be brought up. 100% of the seasons that we do, we need to talk about that.
Every episode, mate. I'm happy to just chuck that in.
Okay, well, let's get a new segment going. Taylor's free throw record. It's coming every week. Mate, this week has been a big week because we have been just desperately waiting with no information at all about when SuperCoach Classic was going to drop for the NFL game this year. Mate, we were even talking about just yesterday. We had a feeling in our waters that it could be today here on Thursday. And here we are. We've got all the good news to go. And mate, I found out because I had an Instagram notification from you. How I found out.
Well, almost like I was refreshing my team 7,000 times a day, Matty C. But look, I'm not going to, come out and say that that's what I was doing because I think we all know who I am, and there's no way that's something that I'd do. But mate, obviously been very, very excited. There's been rumours for the last week or so that it's going to get opened, and a lot of people saying that there's been setbacks and talent dates and then it not happening. So it's definitely been something I've been super excited to keep an eye on, and having to stare at my 2025 team with JJ McCarthy sitting there as a starter in week 18, staring me back in the face has been a bit brutal. But yeah, mate, I'm so pumped. I heard from someone today that they had a feeling if it was going to open today, it would be at midday. So I definitely kept myself open at midday, and straight away, right on 12, it opened up and, said, create your team for this year. And mate, I am absolutely pumped. I can't wait to get into this podcast and start talking SuperCoach Classic. For anyone who's been following us, we've been doing a lot of draft stuff in the preseason, but this is where we really, really wanted to focus on this year. We know most of you are playing Classic with a bit of draft. So this is the one we wanted to get out there to you straight away as soon as it opened.
Mate, we saw last year there were in the range of about 34,000 super coaches playing Classic last year. I don't know about you, but I feel like that number is set to be much larger this year. And so we can see that there's going to be a need for people to have resources to talk about it, get good insight. And mate, I'm super glad to be doing the show with you, because one thing that I learned last year was about how the stockbroker brain has to work for SuperCoach Classic in a way that my brain wasn't built for that, with all the years of draft NFL fantasy I've been playing. And even with some SuperCoach I had been playing in rugby league, that's kind of the prevalent sport, the part of the universe I've been from. And I just was having a tough time picking up that part of the brain. This year, though, in SuperCoach Rugby League, having seen a season of it in NFL, mate, it has changed my world. I feel like I've got a better grip of that. But I got a lot of that from spending time with you, talking about how the draft game works. I'm really looking forward to being helpful to some folks, and especially coming from the position of someone who still feels like they're kind of really learning it.
Mate, as a man who knows he has some kind of autism in him and loves numbers and stats and all that stuff, between that loving sport and loving, well, I guess the math and the data of it all, it's just a match made in heaven for me. So I know there's a lot of others out there that are similar to me, but obviously I've been playing the SuperCoach Classic game in NRL and lesser extent AFL for a long, long time. So I've absolutely loved this. I've loved doing NFL fantasy with you for a long, long time. So them sort of meshing together is perfect. So I felt like there was a lot of super coaches out there that we could help because we've obviously been doing the NFL side for a long, long time. And mate, I love the SuperCoach Classic game because you can delve into the numbers. It's all data, it's all stats. And, you know, there's kind of almost less about like feel. Like, yes, we are going to talk about, other things about like offensive lines and things like that to why a player might be good this year in that specific scenario. But it really does crack down to the data of what they did last year, especially for the opening week this year in your starting team. It's really, really about what they did specifically last year and the stats they had, and what you believe and forecast for them this year compared to that number, because we're all trying to make money on our players and sell them for the highest amount. So, mate, I'm rambling right now. I'm excited. I don't even know what foot to put forward at the moment. So I cannot wait to get into it.
You're like the kid who's on the start line of the 100-meter race in like year
Oh,
4
so
who cannot
pumped.
wait for the gun. You can just see him jumping around, waiting for the gun to go.
Yeah, my assumption too is like, especially based off that rhyme you just heard, just absolutely quality as always, is I would probably like hear the gun and not start. Like I'd fuck it up somehow and just like look the wrong way, and all the other kids would be 50 meters in front of me before I even knew what happened. So I'll try and do my best, but the excitement levels are an all-time high right now.
My gosh. Well, mate, I think you've actually done a real good job teeing us up, because one thing that I really understand is pivotal to your opening lineup. And like, we can talk about your team and maybe look at an early team reveal and that sort of thing as well. But we want to talk about some of the players who we think are kind of likely to be the most owned and some reasons for why. And that, yeah, it really doesn't, it's such a different uh, approach to NFL fantasy doing it the super coach way. Australia and New Zealand have been playing Supercoach for a long time, but not the NFL version. So to come at it from a draft background, it's very easy to see which players you think are going to be super valuable for point scoring. But that's not the only element. So when we get into this, I'm going to be really fascinated to understand what drives some of the decision making for you, and to bring some of the things that I've learned about that along the way too. Mate, we've got a little game that we want to play to kick this off. Do you want to describe how this is going to work? Because this show is nothing if it's not just you versus me on a bunch of shit.
Absolutely, mate. And I kind of came up with this concept last week when we were, hearing that it might have been opening soon. I just thought, what's the best thing we can do is this initial podcast getting out? Like, right now it's 1:43, so it's only been released for less than 2 hours. So what I thought was, instead of sort of going through what we'll do later in later pods, because the data right now in terms of ownership percentages is just a bit skewed. There obviously isn't that many people in there. We're not going to know the exact data for a little while. So we'll get to, the highest percentage owned in certain positions and things like that later when we have a bit more data to sort of sift through. Right now, it's really about just getting something out there to you guys quickly. And what I thought was a good idea was, Matty C and I, and just anyone who's done the draft system, we love doing drafts. We love having fun. We love trying to beat our mates. And we thought, you know what, here's a good way to sort of mesh who we think is going to be some of the higher owned players and the reasons, like you mentioned, for why that is. And we're going to do sort of a snake draft where we basically take a guy in each position. We're going to take 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 quarterback, and 1 tight end. Just go through snake draft and pick guys that we think are going to be highly owned in SuperCoach Classic and why this year. So I just thought that would be a fun little game off the straight away from being released. And like I said, just because I feel like the data is going to be a bit skewed early on. So like I mentioned, we're going to have so many more podcasts in the lead up to week 1. There's plenty of time to go through positional rankings and highest owned players and stuff like that. So this is really us just taking a guess at who we think is going to be highly owned. And then, like you mentioned, after that, I'm going to do a quick team reveal of who I've chucked into my team. Obviously, subject to change. My motions, like anyone else's, change in the lead up to season sometimes. But I'm going to just sort of throw out there who I like at their price and who I have good projections for this year.
I love that. And mate, what is great about this is it forces us to really think like the super coach, right? We're not, this is where we can shed some of the draft stuff that we've been doing for the last couple of weeks and really get into that stockbroker mindset of being like, right, a player has to be worth their current price. They need to be showing me they're doing enough to maintain or grow that current price. And then I need to think about, depending on what that price is doing, what does that allow me to do next? So that was kind of the biggest thing that I took away from playing this game last year with the NFL. So the sport that I knew best and the fantasy that I knew best with the format I didn't know so well. Mate, it leads us to this point where we need to work out, well, okay, let's do this draft. And you generally have an interesting way to decide who goes first. And I'm putting you on the spot because we actually hadn't talked about how this was going to be determined yet. Who do you want to get the first pick in this and how are we determining that, mate?
I didn't really, to be honest, because I'd sort of set the game up. I was kind of happy for you to go first if you thought that was easier. I'll just pass that over. Obviously, there's only two of us, so I just thought, you know what, just to get it moving. We actually wanted this to get close to the halfer that we normally. Well, I say normally, we never do. But I just thought it'd be a hilarious thing if the first episode we put out there actually was close to half an hour, given the Supercoach halfer.
It'd be unexpected.
So I thought we would move on. We probably don't need to play a game. I just thought, you know what, I'll pass it over to you. You can start, and then obviously we'll snake the rest of the way.
Yeah, this is the thing. Give people what they don't expect, right? Always get them to
Yeah.
work out what's your next move, what's your next move. And here we are going
Keep
to
them
give them
guessing.
a halfer. Who would have thought? What's on the
Who would have
label?
thought the halfer would be close to a halfer, mate? No one saw that one coming.
That's it. Keep them guessing, Tay. Keep them guessing.
There's also a chance it won't be. The way that you and I chat and do drafts, there's also a chance it's going to be like an hour. So I don't mean to foreshadow or foreskin. Can't believe I just said foreshadow. Something that might not even happen. So we'll wait and see.
Wait and see. They're at about the 10-minute mark or 12-minute mark now. So, we're doing all right, mate. We're doing okay. Mate, I looked at this in terms of which player do I think, which players especially do I think are such good value to buy that it would be almost impossible to not consider having them in my team. And the first place I looked was at quarterbacks. And the first quarterbacks I looked at was Lamar Jackson. And the reason I looked at him was because just finishing last year, he was a quarterback that we expected to be really consistently good all year. He had a really up and down year. His value was really low by the end of the year. It was only about $16 million, which meant a lot of people had gotten back on, and he was scoring some points at that point. And given that his body of work last year and where he finished last year, my expectation was that he would also be someone again this year that is going to be very difficult to walk past. Given the body of work wasn't fantastic last year, his opening day price would likely be quite low compared to what we expect out of him. So I'd taken Lamar Jackson as my first look at a quarterback, especially in terms of someone who I thought was going to be exquisite value, since we're not allowed to pick rookies. That's the other thing here. We're not picking rookies. We're going to talk about rookies in the future.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't touch on that. We are going to leave rookies out of this draft because we've got, like I mentioned, so much time to delve into rookies, highest owned players, stuff like that. And we did feel like some of the rookies are probably a little obvious for this draft. So we decided to look at the veterans, as we call them, the guys that have been in the league already. And we figured we'd put them only in this draft, and we'll have plenty of time. It might even be our second episode. We might delve into the rookies that we think would be in our starting sides and which ones we should probably just have a wait and see approach on. So yeah, for anyone who's like, why are they not taking this guy? He's obvious to be in your starting team. That'll come later when we talk rookies. So this is only veterans.
Yeah, and so with that caveat, which we didn't describe at the start, this is what's led me to Lamar Jackson. He finished the year last year at the same sort of money as Cam Ward. So it kind of tells you how he eroded in cost. And the Cam Ward, we know, had a really uneven season. So for those to be at the same sort of price toward the end of last year, kind of made him someone who I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid looking at.
Yep, I'm with you, mate. Don't mean to, ruin my team reveal later. He'll definitely be in my side. Tick over 21 mil. Just a down season on last year. And honestly, when you're looking for Supercoach value, that's where you're looking. You're not looking at the guys that just dominated the year before. You're looking for the ones that just had a down year for whatever reason. He starts with a break even in week one of 37. Obviously, we'll touch on in later podcasts that it doesn't so much matter what your break even is in week one. It's a 3-game sample size or a 3-game average where that matters, but it's just a good gauge on where you think he should be. And honestly, I think he can average well over 40 this year. So I think that break even's too low. And I feel like Lamar, you look at draft side, he's going anywhere from the second to the third a quarterback off the board, whereas he is nowhere near the second or the third in price. So straight away, that's just a screaming value.
Alarm bells were ringing, mate. Alarm bells were going off.
So I'm going to go to a different position. Obviously makes sense. I don't need to pick my quarterback till last now.
Yeah.
But I kind of had a person in my mind that I would pick 101 if I had it. I just think his value this year is absolutely absurd. So I'm going to go to the wide receiver position. I'm going to say Justin Jefferson. I just think he's another one like Lamar that probably killed some people last year. I know you are going to wax lyrical about this. I was lucky enough where I stayed away from him somehow. I didn't start with him, and then obviously I just kind of kept waiting for the right moment with his price going down and down, and then it just kept going down and down. I just never had the right moment, so I avoided it luckily. But he comes in at a tick over $11 million this year. He is such value. He gets Kyler Murray, which a lot of people might not look at that and go, that's an amazing situation. But the fact is, over what JJ McCarthy produced, it actually looks like a massive upgrade. Kyler has facilitated some very good wide receiver seasons in the past. And to me, he's just a more complete quarterback at this point of his career than JJ McCarthy is. He just needs a lot more time to sit behind someone like Kyler and learn. And in the end, I brought this up in the preseason last year. I just trust this KOC offense. Like I'm looking at last year as a blip on the radar for the Vikings offense. I have seen so many different years where Kevin O'Connell, who I'm calling KOC, the coach of the Vikings, has run such a good offense. You saw it with Kirk Cousins, a few years ago, that they just ran an amazingly crisp offense, and so I trust it. And I'm just looking at last year that a rookie just couldn't get it done, and you put Kyler in there. I think there's a very good opportunity for this offense to hum this year. And Justin Jefferson's one of the most talented wide receivers in the league. He just had an off year last year, so I just think he's a screaming value, and he should be in everyone's teams week one.
And Ray Moore. He was my first choice for a wide receiver as well. And I was sort of in this toss up between do I talk about Lamar first or Jefferson? And you're right, like he absolutely murdered me. He was, I don't know how many times you talked about sunk cost fallacies and looked me dead in the eye with Justin Jefferson. And I know I wasn't alone in that, just expecting that. It's going to turn around. He's going to end up with a couple of great days. He's going to start to regain his volume. It'll be okay. And it just never was. So he's going to come in way lower than expected. There was so much turbulence with the quarterback last year between Carson freaking Wentz starting, J.J. McCarthy in, hurt. His first 3 games were all big primetime games, which is a massive ask for a brand new rookie. It all makes sense to me. Justin Jefferson's going to be very hard to walk past.
Yeah, mate. All right. Sorry, yeah, so we're snake drafting, so I go next, right?
Yep.
So I will change up my position. Like I mentioned, definitely don't have to go to quarterback at the moment. This guy, I don't think will be the most owned running back, because I do feel like there's some guys that probably will just, it's very specific to team builds, right? There might be some guys that have values in Classic that might not just end up in people's teams because they obviously find value in other positions and they just decide to load up their starters with 6 or 4 amazing starting players. So this guy isn't necessarily guaranteed to be highly owned, but I think he should be, because I've been touting this guy as a top 10 running back in draft all preseason. I had him at 4 initially, slightly moved him back, but I just think this offense really, really needs him. They paid him to be great in this offense, and it's Kenneth Walker. He finished running back 29 last year, so I think he is a screaming value. He's just a tick over 13 million starting price in SuperCoach with with a break even of 20 for game one. So I just have to have him. I just feel like I want that to be my sort of value pick in the running back position in my starters. I'm very, very confident. They haven't really paid a running back in a long, long time, the Chiefs. I think with Mahomes coming in off the ACL tear, they are going to really rely on Kenneth Walker and Rashee Rice early on this year. You're not going to see third downs where Mahomes is taking off like he did last year. They're going to need to pass and run with their running back and their receivers. So, yeah, I just think Kenneth Walker is a screaming hot value from week one, and he'll definitely be in my side.
Yeah. I'm not surprised by that pick either, because as I was looking down the list as well, I'm like, oh God, with how much Taylor loves Kenneth Walker for redraft because of that disparity, right? That he finished so low last year. His yards, like fantasy points per game in standard fantasy draft scoring was so low, but then you could see the role was really great because as Charbonnet vacated with his injury and they lent on him through the back part of the that playoff run, that it just kind of, with so little competition in Kansas City, I felt like you were going to go to that like a bear to honey, mate, and you did not disappoint me.
And in Classic, you're really just looking for changes in opportunity. And like you just touched on with Charbonnet and Walker at Seattle, it wasn't that Walker wasn't a talented back. It was just that they were using a two-back committee, and Charbonnet got all the red zone work. He got all the touchdowns, and it wasn't until the playoffs when Charbonnet was gone that you actually saw what Kenneth Walker can do with a full workload. The words will come to me eventually. Um, so I just feel like they're going to give him that workload at the Chiefs. And so I just feel like based off what he was doing last year in that split at Seattle, he walks into a massive workload at the Chiefs. I just feel like he's just guaranteed Supercoach success.
I can't disagree. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hit my first wide receiver. I've got Lamar Jackson in my back pocket, and I'm going to go and hit my first wide receiver. And I feel like this is a very similar thing. We're changing opportunity, right? You see an offense where everyone expects a lot of passing volume, and then some of those targets are no longer wearing the same uniform. So it allows a player who showed promise last year to grow. And that's where I'm looking at Emeka Egbuka. He finished last year around 8 million bucks, which is great because he was a rookie last year. So he was only starting from 4 million. He grew even though he finished at that kind of price last year. Now knowing that Mike Evans is in a completely different other side of the country, and we don't know what Chris Godwin's going to look like. The only other big target in that offense in the passing game may be Jalen McMillan, but I haven't seen it the way I've seen it with Emeka Egbuka. He was one person I just put a big red circle around and went, if Taylor doesn't talk about him first, I'm going to talk about him next.
Yeah, for anyone who's followed us in the preseason and on our socials, I actually did a bit of a deep dive into players that I thought would be values in SuperCoach Classic when it eventually opens. And what I basically did was I compared season finish to what their ADP in draft is, so average draft position for anyone who isn't a draft geek like us. So Ibuka came up as one of the most highly value players for Classic at wide receiver because he finished at wide receiver 36 over the whole year,
Yeah.
but he's being drafted anywhere from sort of that wide receiver 18 to 20 range. So straight away, he's basically halving his cost in Classic compared to I guess what he is projected to do in the season. So straight away, he's a screaming hot value from game one. I did see he limped off practice today, so I just thought I'd point that out there. But again, we're assuming health when we're looking at these guys right now, and they take anyone off for any precaution,
Yeah.
in season.
I'm
So
sure he had a hangnail. It's fine.
yeah, I'm sure he's okay. But again, this is just to point out, always keep an eye on the news because things are always changing. So yeah, just obviously keep an eye on Booker for whatever happened there, but I assume he's okay. But yeah, he's a screaming hot value in Classic for sure.
Yeah, I think he is. And my tight end, who I'm going to take next now that I'm getting into my third round, um, he is in a similar position where he started out as a rookie last year. And because his fortunes were looking pretty strong at the start of the year, but his offense changed and it kind of fell into a screaming heap. By the end of the year, his value had kind of deteriorated from what it could have been. And I don't think you're going to be surprised to hear Tyler Warren come out of my mouth here, Tate. He's probably, to me, in terms of value tight ends, that isn't a rookie, got to be the most owned in that category of tight end. Will it make him the most owned tight end? I don't know. I still think there's people who you pay up for because you know there's a premium to be had. But in terms of just somebody who I think should be really, really highly owned just because of his cash generation and his point generation. Tyler Warren, to me, looks like he fits the bill. That offense looked great until Dan Jones got hurt. They started 7-0 last year, and then they went on to only win one of their last 10 games after the Jones injury. Just kind of says to me that he's going to be very, very Dan Jones dependent, but he's starting from such a low base, it's hard to walk past.
Absolutely love Tyler Warren. You're not going to hear any complaints out of me. I actually started with him last year. So even obviously he came in at the rookie price, which made it a bit easier. My only complaint with myself was I wasn't starting him. Like, I had him as my bench tight end. So yeah, look, I absolutely love this pick. He's another one I brought up in my little article that he's going at tight end 4 in drafts, but he finished at tight end 10. He's just a ticket over $11 million starting price in Classic, which gives him a break even of 17, which is pretty low. I think he can easily knock that out. And I'm with you. He's definitely. I kind of look at it in draft that there's a top 4 and you should basically punt the position completely off a cliff. Whereas him and another guy that I will take eventually, I think are massive values in Classic because I think they can both finish as the tight end 1 this year. But they're obviously very they're great values compared to the other 2. So I'm with you on Tyler Warren. His situation, Alec Pierce, the perceived wide receiver 1's just hurt himself in the preseason, he hurt himself and had last year and had off-season surgery, and he isn't even back on the practice field yet. So what I look for in tight end is there an opportunity for targets and can they be right up there in the pecking order? Because sometimes at tight end, it actually matters more about where you are in the pecking order in the receiving game more so than the actual quarterback or system or the offense as a whole. And Tyler Warren honestly could be the number 1 receiving threat on this team. He probably definitely will be. So, yeah, I'm with you, mate. Tyler Warren's highly touted for me. And again, I don't mean to ruin this, but he'll definitely be in my starting side.
Same here. I mean, yeah. And I did a really great piece in the tight end show that won't release until after this. It won't release until tomorrow, just about how an ecosystem for tight end needs to work. If you are going to take a guy who isn't one of those couple of you pay up for because you know you're going to get the return. They're expensive, but they're also value. For these guys who are in the next tier or 2, how to go about identifying those guys, because it is worthwhile for both draft and for Classic, because then you're both working from players who've got a lower starting base, who've got room to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. All right. So draft strategy here. I don't need to take tight end or quarterback.
Yeah, I relieved you of that worry for a couple of rounds, mate.
Yeah, so what I'm actually going to do here, actually, no, I'm going to pivot there. Sorry, I was about to say something and it wasn't even going to be correct. That would have been a very good start to the podcast this year, mate.
Now, you say things are wrong all the time. I call you out on it all season.
Like, I've got plenty of time to just be wrong a million times. But what I'm going to do here is the next 2 are quite different. The next 2 are guys that, again, will be highly owned because that's kind of what the game is. But these guys are a lot more, they'll be in everyone's starting teams because I just feel like they are not only value, but they are just highly touted players that I think everyone just needs to have. Number 1 is who I think should be the number 1 off the board in all formats, is Jahmyr Gibbs. Because I believe he's coming in at a lesser price than, say, Bijan. And so I think he just is going to be the number 1 with a board at the running back position. Not only the running back position, but I think any wide receiver, any running back, Jahmyr Gibbs is who you want. He loses David Montgomery, who was obviously taking a lot of the goal line from the Lions and just was a very good back. Honestly, he was an underappreciated back because he was obviously the number 2 to Gibbs last year and the last couple of years, but he shouldn't be. He deserved to be the 1 somewhere else, and now he's headed to the Texans to be the 1. And you really don't have anyone backing him up. They wanted Gibbs to be the bona fide 1 on this team, so they are going to give him 70, 80, maybe even 90% of the work. So you can take whatever price he was. He's just over 24 million this year. Throw it out the window. He is going to beat that in spades because he is going to have so much more work. The offensive line, for anyone who's been following our socials, me and Matty have had a huge look at offensive lines, not only just as a whole, but for whether they're good at run blocking or pass blocking, Detroit are far better at run blocking than they are pass blocking. I think they're 20 odd in pass blocking, but they're in the top 5 for rush blocking. So I just think they're going to run all day. I think Gibbs is going to get a predominant amount of it. And what's awesome is so good in the passing game. You're getting 2 points per reception in SuperCoach Classic. I just think he's the bona fide one in the running back position, and you're not even having to pay the bona fide number 1 price. So at just over 24 mil, I just think he smashes this out. I think he's going to be in there in everyone's team. So I don't think I need to keep going on about it, but I just want everyone to realize that this guy needs to be in your team because of the upside and the floor he has. So I'm going to move to my second pick, and I'm going to take another wide receiver. So I'm going to fill up my running back and wide receiver because it just makes sense with how the draft has fallen. I'm going to take this guy because I have him as my number 1 wide receiver in my draft rankings. And he's not going anywhere near number 1 price. And it's Jamar Chase. He's just over 20 mil. He easily could be the number 1, and I'm predicting him to be number 1 this year. He's $5 million less than Puka Nacua, who, again, I don't think is a bad pick himself, obviously, as long as he's not getting suspended for off-the-field stuff. But in the end, you're getting a decrease in starting value from Jamar Chase because he didn't have Joe Burrow for such a huge portion of last year. Joe Burrow comes into this season healthy that we know of. Hopefully he stays that way by week 1. But in the end, you're just getting a guy that probably should be around that $26 million for a $5 or $6 million discount. I think he smashes this number. I think that Cincinnati are going to come in humming this year. I've seen them struggle at the start of years in the past, so I think they're really, really going to hit the ground running. They're a team that doesn't have an amazing offensive line, so I think that means they're probably just going to have to get the ball out quick. You even see that with Chase Brown in the running back position. They really, really need to rely on their receiving game, not only in their wide receiver core, but even in their backfield. So I just think this team's going to be passing a shitload. Their defense sucks pure ass. It got a bit better with Dexter Lawrence, obviously, but in the end, this is going to be a bottom 5 defense again. They're going to need to be in shootouts and winning a lot of high-scoring games. So, again, everyone lock in Jamar Chase. I know he had some games that probably pissed people off last year, but in the end, that's why you're getting value like Justin Jefferson, to a lesser degree than Justin Jefferson. But I just think these two are bona fide studs that you need to start with in your week 1 team.
In me, my week 1 team, and in every draft team, I can get my hands on him as well. Mainly not because there's any question about his point scoring ability. We all know that, but certainly for Classic, sorry, his starting price is just, there is no starting price too low. And there's probably no starting price too high. He's just one of these players that I don't really mind what he costs. I know that he's going to return it, but because he's got the opportunity to grow, I'm going to jump on that. Hey, Tay, you mentioned a running back. I haven't picked a running back yet, but you mentioned a running back before who I'd circled because I don't think he's going to be super popular until people start doing the maths on it. But you mentioned David Montgomery, right? I don't know that he'll be super popular, but I think he should be. And my case for him is exactly sort of what you said. Like, he has now gone to a team where the most endearing player on that team is Woody Marks, who we saw try and carry the mail in the late part of the season last year. Their offense was uninspiring, not really his fault, but he certainly wasn't going to be the one to turn it around. We've seen that they've made some good changes on that offensive line, and this is really the do or die season, I think, in terms of CJ Stroud's career as a Texan. I think they've done the right thing by getting David Montgomery there. I think people also have in their mind David Montgomery some big fat plotter. He's not. He's always been pretty agile and able to move and evade tackles, and now he's going to get the volume that supports him being able to do that in a way that he just could never get that volume at Detroit because it was a shared backfield with an even more dynamic back. So I had David Montgomery knowing that he's not probably going to be super popular out of the gate, but I think as people do the maths as this run up to week 1 starts, I think he will become quite a trendy little player to throw in there because you've got 4 running backs plus 2 on your bench. I think he's going to find himself just being a little cash generator on people's bench.
Yep. I don't have a problem, mate. It's good that there's 2 of us on this pod because he's definitely someone I probably wouldn't have brought up. He won't be in my starting side. It's the only thing that concerns me is, yes, what I just brought up about getting a better role is 100% true. You could not be more right about that. He's going to have a far better role on the Texans than he did on the Lions because he's just going to get a higher snap share. But my only concern is I just don't think the Texans score anywhere near as many touchdowns as the Lions did. And I'm worried that what you get in extra production in terms of snap count, you kind of lose in the touchdown opportunities. But I will also say that he's going to get a higher percentage of the touchdown look or the red zone looks than he obviously got in Detroit because Gibbs was obviously stealing kind of half of it. So I guess it is all going to kind of marry out to what I think will definitely be value. Like he's going to beat what he did in Detroit just because he's going to get there with volume and he's going to have more opportunities to score touchdowns. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's enough for me. And again, the way that the teams sort of shake out is I'm kind of looking to have studs in that starting lineup with, I guess, rookies that we'll obviously touch on another podcast, probably on my bench. So I'm not really looking for a guy around his like price and situation. I know I've mentioned Kenneth Walker, which isn't much different, but I really like Kenneth Walker a lot more than I do Monty this year. So yeah, again, I was just giving a devil's advocate. I probably won't start with him, but I completely understand where you're coming from because his role is better.
Yeah, his role significantly better. The wide receiver who I was going to pick up in this spot too, and this is kind of funny because it's like you, this is nervousness about point scoring for the Texans. We had a really wonderful conversation the other day about Garrett Wilson, who's also in this terrible offense where he gets the stank of the Jets on him. He's actually an incredible player, and he also did not have a terrific season last year. He was actually injured for a portion of it too, but he had terrible run of quarterback play there. He's a wide receiver I'm sort of looking at as somebody who'd be a wonderful pod who can also grow you some cash. I liked Garrett Wilson just because you really talked me around. I had him just outside my top 10 in draft, so it's not that I didn't like him. But the way you made that case for him kind of got me looking at him here, and I know that he is going to be a cash generator because there is absolutely no way he can have worse service than he had last year. I like to look at Garrett Wilson.
I won't touch on this too much because I'm going to probably wax lyrical about him later, not again to ruin the segment. But I love Garrett. I love him in redraft. I really like him in classic because, like you just said, what he was getting served up was absolute pure shit at the quarterback position. So yeah, I do think he's value as well. So he's one that I'll definitely touch on later.
You got your onesies now.
The onesies, mate, it kind of worked perfect. I like the idea of saving the onesie positions. So these are both guys that are currently in my week one team. So I'll go to tight end. You brought up Tyler Warren as one that's also in my team. I really like the value. I've got another guy that pretty much finished around the exact same position as him, but he's another one of that sort of big four that I've brought up, and it's Colston Loveland. I absolutely love his situation this year. He's another one that, I brought up in my little article that I did where he's getting drafted at tight end 3, but he finished just outside the top 10 in terms of points per game because he was obviously a rookie and he kind of didn't get going until the second half of the year. So that's where you're getting your value. I've brought up that I love this Bears offense this year. Their defense isn't amazing, but I really feel like in the year 2 of Ben Johnson, their head coach, I really think this team's ready to hum. They got rid of DJ Moore, who, didn't have an amazing season, but he was the perceived one on the team. So at least that opens up targets for this offense. You've seen Luther Burden actually go down. He's going to miss the entire preseason. So, I just feel like that's even more opportunity for Loveland and Adunze himself to get more acclimated with Caleb. Again, we brought up in the preseason about the offensive line rankings. They are top 5 in both rush, offensive line protection, and pass. So they're actually even better at the pass. So Caleb's best part of his game is that he can keep plays alive, and I just think that's only going to help guys like Loveland and Adunze and Luther Burden when he comes back. So I just think in the tight end position, you're almost getting a wide receiver. And the fact that he's just over 11 million, like Tyler Warren, I just think both of these guys are just screaming hot values. And I think both of them can finish tight end 1 in the right circumstances. So, yeah, I'm going to be starting both of them. So I'm going to pick Loveland in this game, but I absolutely love your pick of Tyler Warren as well. And I'm also going to go to my flex that obviously not in this game. I mean, my flex in my starting team. Obviously, you brought up Lamar. I've got him too. I'm going to pick another guy that's very similar price to him, and that's Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is set up for success this year. Last year was just a year from hell for the Washington Commanders in general. I know they just had an injury scare with one of their best offensive linemen, which I don't love, and Laramie Tunsil, but the hope is that he'll still be there for week one. But whether he's there or not, I just think this offense is ready to have a far better season than last year. And this is exactly what we're looking for in Supercoach. We're not looking for the guy that just broke out last year. We're looking for the guy like Jaden Daniels that broke out 2 years ago and then had the problem year last year. So he also, I know Stephon Diggs at this point of his career isn't an enormous upgrade to the wide receiver room, but he helps. He's better than what he had already. They were probably going to have to rely on I guess a rookie at wide receiver too if they didn't go out and get Stephon Diggs. So I believe between McLaurin and Stephon Diggs, that's actually a lot better wide receiver call than he had last year, because obviously McLaurin missed a lot of games himself. So I just think Jaden Daniels is a stud. You're getting him at a lower value than what you saw the year before. You look at this again from what I brought up in terms of what he finished last year compared to where he's getting drafted. He's very similar to Lamar, where he finished around that sort of 15, 16 last year, but it's getting drafted in the top 4
Yeah.
in drafts. So you're just getting screaming value straight away from that lens. So, yeah, Jaden Daniels will definitely be in my starting team. I understand if people wanted to go up to a Josh Allen, but I just feel like the value's there to go both Lamar and Jaden, because I feel like they can at least challenge Josh. This isn't me saying I feel like either of these guys are better than Josh Allen. You're going to want Josh Allen at some stage. I just think for, $4 or $5 million less, I really like the value of both Lamar and Jaden, because I feel like they're coming off bad years and they're going to be far better this year.
And look, and Josh Allen's sort of proving that he's someone who, for point scoring, you have to pony up for. It's the Jaden Daniels and the Lamar Jackson who can give you the money to get there. And, if it then adds more certainty to move up to a Josh Allen, then you do it. Mate, without pouring too much cold water on Colson Loveland, because you left me alone to do a tight end show this week. So in your absence, may have poured a bit of cold water on Colson Loveland a bit. My move with tight ends is I want to see a guy who's got the 90 target floor. I want to see a guy who's got and a share of targets that are getting around. And I want to see a guy who I know can make yards after the catch with that role in the team. Loveland, all of that's theoretical. None of it's real yet. So I'm going to let other people live with that. And if it doesn't come up, great. I feel good about it. If it comes up, okay, maybe I missed him. But last year, over the course of a whole season, he only had 70 targets. He only had 48 receptions. He averaged 9 points a game. And the one novel thing about him was he had 13 yards per reception, which was top 5 amongst qualifying tight ends. So, yeah, he was getting down the field. And yeah, when he was catching the ball, he was doing something with it. But his share of that ecosystem was so small. I'm just going to let other people go after him at that price. And with that weight of expectation, because I feel like he's actually got quite a lot to do to show me that he can even return the value of what he's being paid for. So without throwing too much cold water on it, I guess that's a bit of a devil's advocate take on him.
I also don't mind it because I do feel like there's a team building aspect where you could have either Warren or Loveland and then go for that sort of upper echelon guy in a Bowers or McBride as well. So again, I don't feel like either of these guys are going to be like 100% owned, because there is different ways to tackle tight end this year. But I truly believe you've got to have one of those top 4. Sorry, you're going to have 2 of the top 4 in your starters. So I've got no problem with people taking a different avenue on one of them. And obviously that's your plan with Loveland. I currently just have both of the guys at value because I'm looking to sort of pump money into different positions. But mate, I've got no problem with you sort of wanting to wait out one of them, and obviously Loveland for your sake of it. And then I'm assuming your other position's going to be a Bowers or McBride. And I can't really talk anyone out of that.
Yeah, and maybe even that's both, depending on how that falls. But I think between those top handful of tight ends, Loveland and Tucker Kraft are where I've got my biggest problems with people being able to recycle their either what people are expecting or what they did per game on a small sample size. So between the two of them, I think they're the two that when I see people with them, I'll kind of have a little chuckle to myself, feeling good about it.
Absolutely, mate. I just laughed too that we brought up about being near half an hour. We've blown through that to 43 minutes. So for anyone who was worried that the Supercoach Half would be different this year, we're the same, baby. We're back. Let's
We are
go.
so back. We are so back. Does this leave me with the last pick of the draft to take a second running back, Tay? I've got David
Absolutely,
Montgomery
mate.
sitting
Go
there
for
on
it.
only the loner. Like a
I
single
couldn't
test
be
split at home.
I couldn't be happier with my team, mate. So you go for it.
Well, mate, and I feel like there's a couple of fellas you could just pay up for because you know that they're going to be great. And we haven't probably spoken a lot about the guys you can just pay up for because you know they're going to be great. Um, oh, without, there's going to be a lot of folks who will do the Christian McCaffrey. There's a lot of blokes who are going to do the Bijans. Um, I still have, and I know this guy hurt me a bit last year too, and I know he hurt you a bit last year, but I still have this desire to own Saquon Barkley because I just feel like the amount of things that didn't work for him last year in that Philadelphia offense, to me, feels like the outlier. I know it was a big enough sample size because it was a full season, but I just kind of feel like there's no way that season plays out twice. And he's got to be coming in at a far cheaper price than he was coming in at last year. He finished last year around $15 million. There's no way he's not going to be in a position where he generate cash. And I just kind of feel like some of those things that got in his way last year can't continue. So without, just doing the predictable thing and going and taking one of the really big names because it's always great to have a big name, I just kind of feel like Saquon's still got room to move. So I'm going to take him as my second, and it might be a little surprise.
Yeah, I've got no problem with it.
Yeah.
I when I did my little article, he was one of the top running backs for value this year. He finished as running back 15 last year, whereas he's getting drafted around the sort of 6 to 7 range. So again, I know this isn't draft. It's just to give a guide on like where value can come for Classic this year. So I feel like he's set. Like I feel like you're almost taking him in Classic at his floor. I just really don't see him being able to fall below running back 15. Last year was just kind of the year from hell. And again, like we've brought up, like he had a running back 1 season the year before that. And now you're all of a sudden getting value on him. He isn't a different guy. Yes, the offensive line's kind of a little bit more iffy than it was 2 years ago, but it's still a top 5 line. Like it's not, and if you want to go a little bit further, say top 7 line, it's still a very good rushing offensive line to be behind. So yeah, I've got no problem with people starting with Saquon because again, in Classic, that's what we're doing. We're trying to find value off a not so great year last year. We're not just picking guys that dominated last year because we don't have enough money for that. We've got to find value in dudes, and that's exactly what Saquon will be is a value on what he should do this year compared to what he did last year.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a place to pay up for the guy who you know is going to return the elite production. I'm not going to be able to look at anyone who's got Trey McBride in their team and go, bozo. Like, just not possible, right? Because that guy absolutely showed that he's got the ability to do that. And so few things have sort of changed in that situation. If we see Jacoby Brissett return as we expected, it's just difficult to pick on guys who do that because there's going to be a healthy dose of guys who produced at top shelf value that I'm going to want to look at because I still need to score points. So yeah, with all that said, I feel pretty happy. I've got Lamar Jackson and I've got Tyler Warren as my onesies. I've got David Montgomery and Saquon Barkley as my running backs. And mate, I don't even remember now. I've moved on. I haven't written it down, but I was pretty sure that my wide receivers were Emeka Ibuka, but I haven't. I've completely blanked on my second wide receiver. What do I do with that?
Mate, I was always planning on you, and I remember that. I don't think I
I've
wrote it
just
down.
blanked.
Did or wasn't it someone that? Oh no, that was Montgomery. Who the hell was your other wide receiver?
Just blanked. All right, let's move on to your side. Well, I remember because I'm an old man. I've got all this grey in my beard. It's showing now.
Maybe write this part down to maybe cut or something. I don't know.
Mate, just brilliant that we've gotten through that. And I think that hopefully that will just help some folks get the gears greased for how to be thinking. Do you want to run through your team real quickly? I'm really glad that we've done this to kick it off.
Mate, yeah, very, very pumped of how that sort of worked out. So at quarterback, I've got Jaden Daniels. Like I said, just absolutely love his starting price and really, really like his setup for this season. At running back, I was able to get Jameer Gibbs, who I'm obviously picking to be the 101 in drafts and just the best player at wide receiver or running back this year. Paired him with Kenneth Walker. He's someone that I just think screaming hot value, tick over $13 million. Yeah, very, very happy with that backfield in terms of guys that I think are going to be highly owned this year. And speaking of, to get Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, possibly the two best wide receivers in terms of pure talent in the league. I just think they're both values. I feel like just a tick over 20 million for Jamar Chase's unders, and don't even talk to me about the unders on Justin Jefferson this year, 11 million after an absolute abomination of a season last year. There's no one at better value to me than Justin Jefferson this year. And I rounded out with Colston Loveland. I just think, like I said, just a bit over 11 million. The tight end position, I just feel like he's part of that big four that I think could finish at tight end one this year. So, to get him at that price, I just think is huge value.
Huge value. I mean, I kicked off with Lamar Jackson. I then moved to David Montgomery and Saquon Barkley, of course. My wide receiver is Garrett Wilson, who you talked a lot about in our wide receiver show about a week ago. For those who are into the draft stuff, go and catch that. I've isolated that, threw it up on the Instagram through the week because I thought it was such a well-made point. I had Emeka Egbuka as well, who I think is just going to be screaming value. And, of course, Tyler Warren, who you and I both loved last year, and he earned us a bit of cash until things fell over in that offense. So for us, we just think with a bit of stability, he's going to be making a bunch of cash this year. Tay, to wrap this up, you had done a little bit of work on trying to pull together a bit of a starting team, a bit of a considering even just doing a full reveal on the team that you've sort of been toying around with in the 2 hours since SuperCoach opened. You want to give us a run through that before we get out of here?
Absolutely, mate. You'll hear a lot of the same guys, so I'll try and not touch on them too often, because obviously I've sort of waxed lyrical about why I like them this season. But yeah, in the end, I'm pretty happy with how the team's set up. I just wanted to sort of give a reveal about how I've sort of worked out my bench and what sort of positions I've sort of flooded the money into and what I haven't. So. I've set up my team. I've only got 600 grand left, so I've done a pretty good job in terms of moving my money around to have a good setup and not leaving too much money on my bench. So I'll start with quarterback. So I've got Lamar Jackson in my starting quarterback position. Already talked about it, just coming off a down year. Feel like he's massive value. I've gone someone that I don't know if everyone will as their backup quarterback. I just took the extra value on Carson Beck. As my backup, I feel like, get anyone going Fernando Mendoza, I've got no problem with that. He's about 850 grand more than Beck. Whereas to me, both of them are set up to sort of take over sort of middle to end of year, I believe. So I just felt like I'm going to take the value on the guy. I'm trying to obviously flood money into my starters. The fact I can get an extra 850 grand on Beck instead of Mendoza, I just felt like I would go with that. They're in similar situations. If I have to grab Mendoza later, if he starts before Beck, then so be it. I'll use a trade on that. So I just felt like I would go there. My starting running backs, Jameer Gibbs, talked about him. Kenneth Walker also talked about him. This is where this is where I think the most conjecture for me will be. I've talked to you about how much I love Amarian Hampton. I feel like he is value. I've got him as my running back 5, I believe, for this year in draft, and he's at 16.86 mil. Coming off a season where he was more around the 15 mark, kind of similar to what we brought up with Saquon Barkley in terms of average per game last year. So I just feel like with that upgraded offensive line, I feel like Mike McDaniel coming in is going to quicken up the offense, and I just feel like this team's going to lead games. So I like Amarian Hampton. Another one, I did tie up Saquon, and he's probably someone I'll kind of look at, but he isn't currently in there. I've actually gone with Ashton Genty. He's another one in my little article that I did that's a value in terms of where he's going in drafts. He's getting drafted around that 7-8 position in the running back position, whereas he finished at running back 16 last year. So 16.31 mil, I actually feel like that's value. I feel like they are going to be a better offense than they were last year. I've talked about Tyler Linderbaum going over from the Ravens to the Raiders. So I feel like they are going to have a far better offensive line for the running game this year. So I feel like Genty comes in at a value. And on my bench, I've gone with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. I've talked about that I've got the bold take that I think Jadarian Price actually outscores Love on the season this year, especially early. I did actually toy with starting with Price, but in the end, I felt like I didn't need to. I feel like there's enough value out there. So I'm just going to start with Love and Price on my bench at the bare minimum price. Well, the price is actually 4.55 mil and Love is 4.95. So I'm happy with that being on my bench. I'll get to wide receiver. So I've actually gone with JSN, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, who you've brought up, and Justin Jefferson. So that's my starting six. I'm very, very happy with that. Obviously, you've got Puka there at 25 mil, but I decided to go the three guys that I think are far better value than Puka this year. Not having a go at anyone that starts at Puka is phenomenal, but the fact that you can get JSN at 22 mil, Amon-Ra at 21, and then obviously Jamar Chase at 20. I just feel like the first two are probably around their right values, if not slightly underpriced. They're more my studs. I'm not so much worried about losing or gaining money on them. I just feel like I'm getting points out of them straight away. And Jamar Chase is the one that I think could finish wide receiver one this year and is just undervalued. Chris Olave at 17.6 mil. I've already brought this up in a million different draft shows. I just think this Saints offense is on a rocket ship. You know, obviously having an OC and Kellen Moore coming over and being their head coach, he quickened up the offense. I just feel like the Saints are in a position. They don't have an amazing defense, so they're going to need to score points to win. And I brought up in my little article that their passing offensive line is far better at defending the pass. I think they're in the top 10 at that, but they are terrible at defending the rush. They are last at defending the running back position in terms of rush rate for the offensive line, so they don't protect it very well. So I just think Olave is set up for success. I'm not so much worried about Jordan Tyson stealing off him. I just think he's just going to make the offense better. You've touched on Garrett Wilson. I'm really, really high on him. I think he's just been getting fed shit sandwiches from his quarterbacks in the past. I'm not saying Geno is an amazing quarterback. I just think he's an upgrade on what he's been dealing with. They're another team that have a far better offensive line at defending the pass than they do the run. So I just think Garrett Wilson is a bona fide stud who just has been getting bad quarterback play. And Justin Jefferson, I don't need to touch on him again, 11.96. My two bench wide receivers are Carnell Tate, who will feature very heavily in my team name this year, and then Jordan Tyson again. To back up Olave, I guess, you can almost call him a wide receiver handcuff, but the fact that they both come in at 4.9 million and 4.85, I just feel like it's far too much value. I'll move quickly to tight end. I can get through this one quickly because we've brought up both of them. I'm starting with Loveland and Warren at just a bit over $11 million each. I just feel like it's too much value, and I felt like I wanted to pump money into other positions, and I have no problem with anyone wanting to start a McBride or Bowers as that sort of locked and loaded tight end, but I believe these two can both finish tight end one on their position for the year. So I just really, really like that. This is where you and I have chatted about this. This is where I've saved money. I don't see the point in having a high-end kicker. People are spending $14 million on Aubrey. Yes, he's probably going to be the best kicker, but not by enough to warrant spending $10 extra million. I've gone with Smack from Green Bay. I feel like he's going to be the Tyler Loop from last year, where he's definitely on the depth chart as the best kicker, and the guy that's going to be the kicker for the Green Bay Packers this year. He is basically a bargain basement price at $4 million, and I can get him as a starter. So he is my starting kicker, and I've just found some goober in Stevens from the Washington Commanders to be my backup because I don't think you need to be making money in that position. If there all of a sudden is another starter that is around that price, I will shift to them. But right now I'm calling enough as my backup kicker. For defense, I've gone with the Chargers because I felt like they were the best value in terms of what I think they're going to bring this year. They also have a very, very good matchup in week one against Arizona. So I have gone the Chargers at 8.3 million because they are like $4 to $6 million less than a lot of the other top end defenses out there. So I'm looking for value, and I've actually put the Detroit Lions as my backup because I could actually look for even more value as my backup. But what I don't mind in defense is even if I spend an extra $2 million on my backup defense, I can use them and not use a trade, and I can kind of pick good matchups between the two. I think the Lions and Chargers are both going to be far better defenses than last year. The Lions get a lot of personnel back, well, Aiden Hutchinson and the likes, that I feel like they're going to be a far better defense than last year. So I feel like there's value. And to my flex will be Jaden Daniels that I've already spoke about, that I picked in my team already. So that's my team right now, Matty C. I will send that out to anyone who wants to see it. I just wanted to sort of bring it up on the podcast as my early team reveal. So I'll send some screenshots out of that. But I am very happy with that makeup of my team right now. So, yeah, Matty C, I am absolutely pumped to just talk about SuperCoach Classic with you, mate. It's phenomenal that it's back.
It is so good that it's back, mate. I'll get my team together as well, and we can get that one out fairly soon too. But there's just so many places you're wrong, so I'm looking forward to showing you up on that.
That's it, mate. But honestly, the makeup of that team, I don't think I'll change it a lot. I know that's famous last words. We all like to tinker with our teams, but the makeup of that is where I want to be. Yes, there might be some guys that interchange. I've already talked about like a Marion Hampton and Genty. There is a chance one of them becomes Saquon because they're very similar prices. But in terms of just the way I've shaped my team, I think I'd be very surprised if things change. I also learned from last year that I think I tried to get too cute with the wide receiver position. I tried to look at a little bit too much value. I didn't go guys like Amon-Ra and Puka that I loved and knew they'd be bona fide studs. I looked for like Mike Evanses and Drake Londons and stuff where I was getting a bit of value. But I just felt like, you know what, the way I've got it set up this year, I'm really, really happy with it.
I think we did some learning last year, Tay, is the way you put that. And that's the thing, right? So you're trying to migrate NFL draft knowledge into a game that you already know, that's Super Coach, and that confluence of those two things, yeah, you can expect to have some teething issues. And I think the pair of us have got a better set of teeth this year for it. So I look forward to getting the opportunity to get my team together as well. Mate, the most important question, I can't believe we haven't asked this, what is that team name?
Like you said, definitely going around the Carnell Tate sort of direction. So right now, I'm still tinkering with it. Right now, it's 0 hate for Carnell Tate, and I've gone H and the letter and the number 8 and T and the number 8 just to fit it in. So, yeah, look, I'll be tinkering with that. I think it will be Carnell Tate related, but like we've said, we literally got this podcast out an hour and a half after it opened. So really, I just tried to figure anything that was Carnell Tate related and chucked it out there. So I'll take suggestions. I'm more than happy to hear something. I'm not locked into that name, but I'm happy with 0 hate for Carnell Tate for now.
It's a large reason why I haven't started on my team yet is I need to come up with a team name first. And last year I ran with the Crikey Cats, a bit of a nod to being Aussie, a bit of a nod to the Jags. So I've got to workshop something in that range a little bit, but I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Mate, thank you so much for making the time out of nowhere in the middle of a work day to get this together. We'll have this out in the afternoon on the same day. So, mate, we'll catch up over the course of the next week. We'll be back together on Wednesday next week so we can record for a Friday show. But how about that? You're going to have 2 SuperCoach Halfas this week. The one right now and then the one I was working on in Talor's absence. I told you he was cooking something up. I told you. And it'll give you a double bung of the SuperCoach Halfa. Two in as many days, Tate. How about that?
Mate, it's a lot of action from the Halfa this year between the draft show and now the classic show. But like, we are so pumped. And for anyone that hasn't heard us in the preseason, we are so ready to give you, all the latest and greatest classic content this year. Like last year, it just all got thrown at us at the last second. We obviously had all this preparation for the draft show and then all of a sudden needed to chuck a SuperCoach Classic show together. And then we also struggled to find time because we were basically spending 2-3 hours on our draft show on Wednesday nights, and then we needed to find a separate day to do the classic recordings. And you and I, we both got full-time jobs and we're both fathers. It was just a nightmare some weeks to find the timing to get it done. And so we were doing solo pods. We were doing podcasts that were releasing anywhere between Thursday and Saturday. It was just a bit of a nightmare getting it out, but we knew this was coming this year. We've set ourselves a schedule for us, so it's out Thursday Thursday every single week
Everywhere.
to get you guys prepped for obviously the Friday game that starts the week. And then, so you're not going to be sitting there asking us where it is. We're going to have it out there at the same time every single week. So we're a lot more professional and set up this year, Matty. For anyone asking, we're going to have our overall league yet again. Again, congratulations to Joshua Foot for taking down the Seahawks jersey, but we're going to have a bigger and better prize this year for all you guys. We're hoping to have even more. We had over 300 of you in our first year of NFL Supercoach in that league. So we are just so over the moon of the support that we had in year one, but we want to make this bigger and better in year two, guys, and we can only do that with the support from you. So, like I said, we'll have another overall league, and we're also going to do a draft league that we'll drop some info about because obviously we've been talking a lot of draft, and we want to just sort of give an opportunity for a Supercoach draft league, just to sort of give that platform a bit of support. But again, we're in the Classic show right now, so I thought I'd just mention that we're going to have another overall Classic league. So plenty of time in the preseason to talk about all this stuff. For honestly, all of you, if you've got any questions or anything you want to hear on the podcast in this preseason or during the season, reach out. We are always wanting to hear the super coaches and what they want in these episodes. We did a pretty good job of doing a mailbag and trying to sort of tinker with the show to make it great for you super coaches. We got great feedback, but if you've got anything you didn't hear from us last year or you just really want to hear about, I've already had people, reaching out about making sure we touch on the rookies. We'll definitely do that soon. So yeah, look, thanks so much guys for the support. But again, please reach out if you need anything from us. But we are super excited. I don't know if you can tell in my voice and the fact I'm bumbling and around, but I'm almost felt like I was nervous coming into this because we've been looking forward to it so much.
Yeah, and I think depending on their platform too, if you're on YouTube or even on Spotify, and Spotify's now got audio and video too, you could just swipe up on Spotify and leave a comment for us there. Also on the YouTube, clearly you can leave comments. So use those too. And if you aren't subscribed to the Aussie Gridiron Network, make sure you are, because between Substack, between things we do with the podcast world and YouTube world, there's just a lot of great content between the things that Tay puts together and that we work on together, but also Manjot from the Pastry Press NFL and the fellas from G'day Gridiron, plus some of the Australian gridiron stuff we do. It really is. We're building a home of American football in Australia here, and it's wonderful to have your support, but there is so much more to it than just the part that we do. That said, we're really thankful for your support in the part we do. Hey, Tay, I'm going to let you go. We're going to get this thing up so we can stop standing in the way of people getting their information. But thanks again, brother, and I'll catch up with you next week.
Thank you, Matty, and thank you, super coaches. We are so back. Clean that Kraken sack. Let's go.
SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa, NFL SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get it faster.